Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the left back whose transfer might be off the cards for Celtic now. Aaron Hickey was someone a couple of days ago we were talking about as someone who could be close to signing for Celtic. Someone we've actually spoke about in the channel for a few weeks now, but with the demands of Bologna over in Italy, it might have made this transfer a little unrealistic for Celtic. We're going to talk about what the scenario is for the club at the moment and what will happen if we don't land that transfer. Who are the other options? We're going to talk about it all in today's episode of Celtic Transfer Talk. Before we go any further with today's video, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and most importantly, hit that like button. The like button is the best way for our content to reach out to everyone on YouTube to make sure we get as big an audience as possible. So please, if you haven't already, make sure to click those two things, the subscribe button and the like button, and help the channel out. So a few weeks ago, I made a video in regards to the transfer window and it kind of just opening where we were linked straight away with two players. Those two players were Kevin Nisbet and Aaron Hickey. Two players who, over the past couple of weeks, have become more and more likely to sign for Celtic, but then in the past couple of days became more unlikely to sign for Celtic. Now, of course, Nisbet's got his own conversation in regards to the Russian teams now coming in and having a look at him and perhaps wanting to outbid Celtic. But Aaron Hickey, out with Celtic's control, has become a lot more harder for Celtic to sign. The situation has become one that I think Celtic will kind of want to distance themselves from unless there is a remarkable turn of events. Now, a couple of days ago, the talk was £3.5 million. Aaron Hickey is in talks with Celtic and it could be close to fruition. We could be seeing Aaron Hickey as a Celtic player come the end of the month or whatever and see him become Celtic's new first choice left back. Now, it's now took a bit of a turn which makes it all the more annoying. There was a bit of a domino effect in regards to the Italy game the other night. Italian left back Spinazzola got injured, brilliant player. He got injured, which meant that Roma need a new left back. He's out for 6 months, so Roma go to Fiorentina and say, Fiorentina, we want your left back. And then Fiorentina go to Bologna, we want your left back, and step up Aaron Hickey, which means Fiorentina has joined the race to try and land Hickey's signature. Now, I don't know if that's the sole reason for this sort of situation happening today, or if it is just down to the fact Bologna have looked at Hickey as the player he is and went, no, we deserve more for this guy. But they are now demanding double the value we were originally told Celtic would pay for Aaron Hickey. Now, we all knew it was £3.5 million that the talk was, but in the last sort of few hours, it's came out that Bologna now value the player and expect £6.5 million. More precisely, £6.7 million, which actually takes it closer to the value of £7 million. Now, Bologna originally had no intention of selling Hickey this summer. Hickey's had a brilliant sort of rise from playing at Hearts, where he was very, very good, to moving to Bologna and doing well in that kind of opening half of the season before he was out with COVID and such. He's had a bit of a rise, and in that time he's managed to find himself on the long list for the European Golden Boy Award. He's been spoken about by the media over here a lot as one of Scotland's best young talents, and ultimately he's got a lot of eyes on him now. So Bologna didn't really want to sell him, but when the money is in there for a big club like Celtic and now Fiorentina, they knew that realistically that was going to be the situation. They would have to sell the player. Which has now seen them put up the valuation of the guy to £6.5 million. Now let's cut to the chase and the main point of this video. I think the race for Aaron Hickey is over for Celtic. I don't see Celtic, and I don't think Celtic should pursue Aaron Hickey much longer. Now, unless there is severe negotiation with Bologna that makes the transfer saga, the transfer fee come a little bit less than that, I don't see why or how Celtic will pay that for a 19-year-old left back. Now, don't get me wrong, I really wanted this to sign Hickey. Originally, I was on the kind of DOIG bus. I wanted this to go and sign Josh DOIG. We'll come to that in a moment. But the more I looked at Hickey and the more I realised how good he was at 17 playing for Hearts, now being 19 playing for Bologna, the more I realised, yeah, he's probably the right option, probably the player we should go for, and he could really improve our depth in the defence, and he's a right-footed as well. He could potentially play on the right. I was like, yeah, we should really get this done. Aaron Hickey would be a brilliant signing. But for £6.5 million, the risk there is gargantuan. It's not worth it, I think, for Celtic at the moment. Now, a lot of people say, well, if we don't go and pay the fee, we'll never know, and we could make more money, and it could turn out to be great, and all the rest of it. Yeah, that's all very well and good. In hindsight, would maybe suggest that in a couple of years' time. But for Celtic to go out in a season where they have to spend a lot of money in different areas of the park, for them to go and spend 6.5 alone on a left back, which isn't probably even the priority in the back line at the minute, I think would be rather daft. Celtic are reportedly about to spend quite a decent sum on Mario Vescovic. Whether or not we get it done, I know, a different story, but reportedly a decent fee. If we want Kevin Nisbet, you're talking about £4 million. If they want another player to play on a wing, or if they want another right back or whatever, you're talking a few £1 million there probably as well. That already you're talking is in the region of £10 to £15 million. Then you throw in a £7 million £7 million transfer fee for Aaron Hickey, if I can get my words out. You throw that in, and you're suddenly talking about all the budget being gone right there, and I still think there's a lot more work to do, and that's not even taking into consideration the potential of loan fees or wages towards loans or wages of free agents. Right away, that's a large sum of money away in a 19-year-old left back who may struggle for all we know. He's not the finished article. He still has development. There's no denying he's a talented player and will have a bright future. There's aspects to his game which are really, really good. But I think to go in to risk that and to gamble that on a 19-year-old left back, Celtic don't spend that on left backs. They don't. We spent £3.5 million, I think, on Bolingoli. That's understandable. I think that is where the region should be. The original fee with Hickey at the end of the day was £3.5 million. £6.5 million to £7 million is a fee for Celtic for a striker, for a winger, for someone who's going to make the big difference in the park moving forward, someone who's going to get you goals, and someone who's probably going to guarantee you a sell-on in the future. Now, Hickey obviously could give you that sell-on in the future. I'm not saying he couldn't, but it's so much easier for Celtic to attract a bigger fee for players who score goals and give them numbers rather than someone who's at left back. I think if the squad were even in a position similar to Rangers where they don't need too much reinforcement, but they had that money there, they maybe would any other year. But this year, there is just so much more to do at Celtic. There are so many players that need to be brought in that we shouldn't even consider, I think, £7 million on a left back. I think that would be a worrying sign as to what we do with the rest or the very limited amount of our money left moving on from that. There was also reports that came out last night from a couple of Italian outlets that suggested maybe Hickey wants to stay in Italy as well. So there, I don't know how true that is. I don't know. You have to take it with a pinch of salt because, of course, it's other journalists, it's other outlets, not from a different country. At the end of the day, we don't really know how reliable the journalists are. We don't see them or see their work every day. But if that is true and that's the case, then maybe Hickey wants a higher wage too. It just becomes a really tricky scenario, I think, for Celtic to try and attract these players. So realistically, where do Celtic go from this if they don't manage to get Aaron Hickey? Who becomes the next option? Now, Celtic may settle for it being Greg Taylor or Bolingoli. We do have a bit more depth in that left back position, in kind of comparison to the right back position where we don't have any depth. We don't have anybody really. So Celtic might put their foot on the brakes with this one for now and wait until we've done the work elsewhere. I think that the attraction of Hickey being a young Scottish talent would have maybe made it a bit more. I think a move that Celtic would have wanted to get over the line. There was more reasoning for it, if you get what I'm saying. Whereas now that he's gone, they might go, okay, we'll come back to left back if we can afford to later on in the window. But if we don't manage to get Hickey and they still want to improve in the left back position, I think the two most realistic scenarios are going to be this. The first one is KENNETH PAAL, who's came up a few times now in the tabloids. His name's been thrown around the internet, of Zwolle over in the Netherlands. He is Dutch born. He's a Netherlands player, or a player of Dutch nationality, I should say. He's never played for the national team, but he made 27 appearances in the Eredivisie last season for Zwolle, a guy who has had already a bid knocked back from elsewhere for £650,000. So it's a player that might be worth the region of sort of £500,000 to £1 million, and someone who could definitely come into Celtic and add the depth down the left hand side. In regards to his game, you're looking at a quick player, a reliable player, but someone who maybe, in sort of difference to Hickey, won't offer maybe depth on that right-hand side. And in regards to the stats that I've looked at about Mr. Zwall, that's the TV place for Mr. PAAL, Kenneth PAAL. In regards to the stats and such I've seen thrown about around him, it looks like a player who likes to carry the ball a lot. He does move a lot up and down that left-hand side. He carries the ball in possession well, but he also does good defensive work in terms of interceptions. And he's someone who I think might offer a bit more of a defensive stability in kind of comparison to Josh DOIG, who is someone who's still very raw for Hibs and still has a lot to learn. PAAL, a little bit older, might offer you a bit more stability. 24 years of age and a former Dutch champion at PSV Eindhoven. He's someone who I think does look quite promising, and if we're looking for a bit more experience, we could go with him. But in regards to Hickey being less experienced, I think we could maybe sway the way of a certain Josh DOIG. So finally, Josh DOIG. Could Celtic maybe reignite the conversation around him? Now, he was someone who us as fans, and I think some of the tabloids as well, touched on as a potential target for Celtic back when the window first opened, but certainly as the Hickey stuff started to take off, the talk of Josh DOIG being an option went right down. Someone Celtic could look at now, and I think Hibs would look for a bit less of a fee than what Bologna are looking for Aaron Hickey. As I've already said, a bit raw. How much improvement would he right now bring on Greg Taylor? Well, I believe with a bit of work he could eventually become better than Greg Taylor, but it's just a matter of once again taking that risk. And will Celtic be willing to take that risk? I'm not so sure, so we just have to wait and see. But he's a talented player. Yet to play in front of a crowd, though. It's one thing that was pointed out on the Celtic the Thunder the other day. He's someone who I do really like, though. I think that he showed the qualities are there to build on and become a top player. Another young Scottish left-back who could go into big things. But is he going to become the alternative now if they want to go for a younger guy? If they want to go for a young left-back like Hickey, is this the guy that Celtic will go for? Let me know what you think. So that does it then. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. A bit of a disappointment here and that this morning about Hickey, because I was starting to really warm to the idea of him coming to the club. It was someone who I really wanted to see us bring through the door, but for £7 million, it's nonsense. I just don't think Celtic can and should pay that sort of money for a left back. So we'll see what happens. Let me know your thoughts anyway in the comments below. Let me think who you think a suitable left back would be at Celtic. Alioski, and I'm telling you, just do it somehow, Celtic. Like and subscribe. I'll see y'all next time.